People always ask how I balance my family life with 400 shows a year. I'm just doing what I love with the people I love. It's my magic life.
I like Wes Iseli. I like everything about him.
All right, guys, we're back. And this week we had somebody reach out to us and say, hey, I'm a speaker. I have 6 different books. And he has a really cool topic he wants to talk about. And I'm like, heck yeah, let's get this guy on. Everybody, it's Cam Knight. What's up, buddy? How are you?
I am doing great. How are you guys?
Doing good, doing good.
Yeah.
Excited about tonight. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just reading your book titles and I'm like, I have questions about this one. I have questions about this one. But the thing that you wrote to us about that you like speaking on, that really helped me. So
yeah.
Take it away.
Okay, so I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Cam Knight. I'm a coach, international speaker, and author of a dozen books in the area of mental, physical, and emotional performance that have sold over 500,000 copies and have over 10,000 ratings on Amazon. Now I talk about a concept called internal resistance, which answers a question I had my entire life, and that is, why is it if I want to do something, I know what to do, I know how to do it, and I have the motivation and desire to do it, but for one reason or another, I can't or don't do it. Now, at the time, there were no clear answers. The best answers that came to me were you need better beliefs, meaning limiting beliefs can hold us back. And although that is true, I always felt like there was more to it. And over the last 15 to about 20 years, that question always lingered in my mind. Every time I felt stuck, I wondered why. Why can't I get stuff done? Why do I keep spinning my wheels? Why don't I just do this dang thing so I can get the result that I want? And the more coaching I did and seminars I attended and the books I read, the more I kind of learned about the complexities of the human brain. And unknown to me, my brain was processing all that information in the background. And at a certain point in my journey, I had this epiphany or aha moment where I was like, wait a minute, there's a part of our mind built to hold us back. There's a part of our brain designed to keep us from growing and making progress. And I call this part resistance. And it's a brick wall that we hit anytime that we want to do something, but we can't, no matter how much we want to do it.
Oh, wow.
So if that's built into us, what does that serve? Why would we have that?
Yeah, so to answer that question, it really helps to understand the part of the brain that creates wants works separate from the part that allows us to act on the want. Now, this is really important, so I'll say it one more time. The part of the brain that creates desires works independent of the part that actually allows us to go after those desires. So we have one part of the brain that's creating wants and desires, and in many ways, it's unrestrained. It's just creating wants one after another. It was never meant to see or check if a want was achievable or worth pursuing. And then we have another part of the brain that actually checks to see if that want is safe, worth going after, or if it's even going to be fulfilling. And so it's really important to understand is it is possible for one brain to create both a desire for something and to hold us back from it. Now, for a long time, I used to think whoever created humanity, whether it was God, aliens, or evolution, must have been really sick and twisted, because how could they do this to us? How could they create these burning desires and then keep us from going after them and have to sit with the pain of it? It makes sense when you look at it from this perspective, though. It's because they're independent parts. And the reason it serves that purpose is because our wanting mechanism, as like I said, it's unrestrained. So it's cranking out wants one after another at a pace faster than any one person can achieve. And so we need a mechanism that checks to see if we should go after a want, a desire, or course of action. Because if it didn't, we'd just be kind of going in all sorts of directions. One, or two, we'd be doing things that aren't safe or things that aren't fulfilling and things of that nature. So I hope that answers that question. That's really the purpose of this part. The challenge is it can go overboard, and it can keep us from not just going after the unsafe wants, but all of them. And it can kind of create a lot of challenge and headaches for us.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just my want part is going off nonstop. I know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I constantly. I want that gig. I want that job. I want that. I want that car. I want right. I
Yeah.
do that all day long, and
Yeah.
I can scroll on Instagram. I want, and I just keep scrolling. I don't do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is one of the challenges of being human. Because, like I said, the part of the brain that creates wants, which I call the wanting mechanism, it's cranking out wants day in and day out at a pace faster than anyone can achieve. Even if you live multiple lives, you couldn't enjoy, let alone achieve, all the wants this mechanism is producing in just a week or even a month. And this is what kind of makes being human challenging. In fact, when we go back to like the scriptures, the 10 commandments, the 7 deadly sins, they were actually trying to help us control this wanting mechanism. You know, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not do all this, because a part of the brain that wants, it just wants to do all those things. And when we look at the 7 deadly sins, gluttony and greed, what they're really describing is this unrestrained wanting mechanism that wants everything. And if a person doesn't have a handle on it, then we just go in all directions and it's difficult to move in any one. And oftentimes we can get caught up in really unhealthy habits and behaviors because that's what the wanting mechanism can do. And so a lot of times I tell people is that it's not just resistance that creates challenges or blocks in our lives, but our wants can do it as well. And it's hard to imagine, but our own wants can keep us from going after and achieving our want. And one of the reasons is what you just described, Wes. Your wants are going everywhere. And because they're just being triggered all the time, you don't pick on any one want to move towards. And as a result, you likely don't move in deep into any one direction. Not to say that you're not doing things, but this can create challenges.
I have Natalie that hones me down. I'm like a
Yeah.
7-year-old kid. I would have moon bounces in the backyard, ball pit, baseball range out back. I would have it all because she keeps me grounded. Yeah,
So this is a really great point because our wanting mechanism is really like a kid in a candy store, and our resistance is like the parent trying to keep that kid in check. Now, what's interesting is it seems like in this dynamic, you're like the kid in the candy store, and Natalie is the parent that's trying to keep you in check.
I got that side of the brain that has resistance, but I also have Natalie to keep that down.
Yeah, exactly. And so what's really important to understand here is that depending on the intensity of our want, so if we have an overactive wanting mechanism and each want has a lot of intensity, it pulls us in all sorts of directions. And this is where people can get caught up in addictions or behaviors where they don't have a lot of self-control. And if our resistance isn't strong enough to contain that, it makes it even worse. But when we have a too overactive of a resistance, then it's hard for us to do anything. And this is where people fall into what's called laziness or procrastination or lack of motivation. And it's not so much laziness or procrastination, it's just that their part of the brain that holds them back is a little too much on overdrive.
So I have a couple of different things for you. Two points. There in my line of work, there's also, I've been told that there's a fear of success. Some people don't go for that thing and don't do that because they fear success. I can't fathom that. I can't imagine that in my world, but I heard that's a thing. Also, there's a book, and I'm not trying to talk about somebody else's props, but you might know it and it might go in some other thing. But they had a book, I don't know, 10 years ago that talked something about this, but they called it like it was something on your shoulder holding you back all the time, and you had to push through it. I can't remember. Do you know what book I'm talking about?
I can't say that I do, or I've heard that.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting point. So when resistance evaluates a want or desire, it evaluates it using a whole host of criteria. And if the decision or desire is not in line with any of the criteria, resistance will prevent action. So a great analogy for this is thinking about standing before a panel of judges or board of directors. Every decision that comes up must go through them. If even one of the members is against the idea, it won't pass. And so, what are the criteria that the brain is evaluating? Well, there's a whole host of criteria. And in my work, I found there's a good 2 to 3 dozen things that come up that hold people back. And it can be something as popularly talked about like beliefs. Remember, I said in my early journey, the concept that I kept hearing about what's holding us back is beliefs. So if a person doesn't believe something is possible, of course the brain is going to hold us back. Though beliefs go even more than that. It's not just if we don't think something's possible, it's if we don't think it's possible for us. So we might be seeing someone do something and then we want to do it, but the brain goes, yeah, it'll work for them, but not me. So it'll hold us back. And then what's even more is some of our beliefs are like very core and really rooted deep down. And they have like the tone of I'm not enough, I don't deserve, I'm too much, there's something wrong with me. And if somebody has that, they won't even know that that's what's holding them back. They just won't be able to move forward. So that's just one aspect or one criteria. But there's other criterias. Comfort zone plays into it as well. For some people, the brain loves comfort and familiar. And so anytime they do something, by the nature of moving towards a goal, you're going to move out of that comfort zone. And the more averse their brain is to something new, the more resistance they're going to create. And then fear of success plays in as well, because it's hard for some people to imagine, like, why would I fear success? But there are a lot of challenges and even dangers that come with success, especially back in the day. Like if you had wealth, you became a target. So people would want to rob you, they might want to kill you. And although we may have never learned that that could happen, unconsciously, the brain knows that there are dangers to success. I think through generations and through evolution, it picked up on that success has a danger. And the less we are able to defend ourselves of the success we get, the more the fear of success will come up. And that's just one part of fear of success, but it can also be kind of related to something that I see a lot with authors. So many inspiring authors want to write a book, tell their story, or get their message out into the world. And now with self-publishing becoming easier than ever, I can give a person some really simple tips and tricks to quickly write a book and publish it. And many will start, but very few will finish. And when I was looking into why that was happening, what I realized is that many people were fearing not so much, or they weren't procrastinating on the book, they were procrastinating on what finishing the book would mean. And for a lot of people, it meant they would have to start marketing it and putting themselves out there. And they had hesitancy to put in all the effort to market it. But more importantly, there was a lot of fear of if it was out there, the feedback and criticism they would get. So, for a lot of inspiring authors, it was much easier to procrastinate on and sabotage on finishing the book now to avoid the something bigger later, the success later. And for some of them was the feedback and criticism that might come their way once their book got out and people read it, and if they didn't like it and things like that. So that's another way fear of success can play into resistance.
But they might even know that's the reason. That might be just the extra thing back here, just telling them not to finish it. Just do something else right now. Just go do something else, because this part of the brain is knowing all of these things can happen. Now you got to promote it. Now you got to do book signings. Now you got to do this.
So how do you get past that if you don't even realize you're holding your own self back?
Yeah. So both very insightful questions, and I'll hit up on as they were asked. That's one of the challenges of resistance, because when resistance stops you, it doesn't tell you that it's stopping you, one. And two, it doesn't tell you why it's stopping you. It doesn't say, hey, you know this book that you're trying to write? Well, we're kind of terrified of the feedback that we're going to receive once it's finished. So I can't let you do it. Or that thing that you want to do, Well, it goes against our beliefs, so we're just going to sit here and do nothing. Inaction manifests other ways, and oftentimes we find ourselves unable to do the thing. And it can show up in many ways. It can show up as fear, like we feel this fear, and we just assume it's the fear that's stopping us. But the fear is triggered because of some other reason. Or we just feel like we're pushing up against an invincible wall. And sometimes we just don't even feel like doing it. And that's where resistance comes in. But what's even more is that it can show up in what I call the tricks of resistance, where how it stops us is much more sneaky and it's much more manipulative than that. So oftentimes a person will get into a pattern of perfectionism where they spend all their time trying to perfect the book, crossing all their I's or T's and dotting all their I's to make sure everything is perfect. And perfectionism is a trick of resistance because the more time we spend on perfecting, the less time we put on publishing and putting it out there. And as long as we don't put it out there, the tricks of resistance wins in keeping us from finishing our book. So this is just one form of trick. Other times tricks can come in the form of getting overwhelmed. So let me ask you, have you guys ever done something that seemed really big and complicated, but then once you did it, you're like, that wasn't so bad. Why didn't I start sooner? Well, that's a trick of resistance because it makes something so complicated, just thinking about it makes you not want to do it. And because you don't do it, it wins. And so it can get pretty sneaky and sly. And so to answer your question, Natalie, so how do we come over it? Well, it's a question that helps to ask a little bit later because there isn't one cookie cutter solution to overcome resistance. We have to first identify the causes of our resistance and then do the things that help us overcome that particular cause. A lot of times people think it's a cookie cutter solution, which is why they will try all these tips and techniques and it won't work for them. And unfortunately, this isn't always easy because different people have different causes of resistance. So you, Wes, could not be able to write a book because of limiting beliefs. You, Natalie, it could be something to do with authority issues. And so if Wes comes across a tip that helps him overcome his beliefs, it's easy to assume this is what I need to do to overcome my resistance to writing a book. So Natalie, you apply the same tip and it doesn't work for you because it's not addressing your resistance. And oftentimes when we see something working for someone else and it doesn't work for ourselves, we assume that we don't have what it takes, we're not cut out, or other negative feelings. And this is one of the challenges of resistance. When it stops us, like I said, it isn't us that's stopping us. So we naturally oftentimes lead to the thinking that it's us. We can't do something wrong. There's something deficiency in us. What I want people to understand is that it is not us. It's just that we have a part of our brain that's designed to stop us, and it's really good at stopping us. So if it really wants to put the brakes in our lives, it has no problems doing it. And we can try to use motivation and willpower to push past it. But in a lot of ways, and for a lot of people, resistance never gives up. It'll keep fighting against your effort. So it really helps to counteract and work on the resistance itself. Now, as I mentioned, this is kind of a complicated topic because some of the causes of resistance go pretty deep. Like I said, in my work, I found there's several dozen causes of resistance. And some of them took me years and decades to uncover. And the reason it was because I was trying to become more successful, and I was trying to push through my blocks to get that success. And oftentimes I would hear about a tip or technique and I would try it and it helped me create progress. But then what I found is I had another layer of resistance and then I had another layer of it. Or if I wanted to do something else, although I worked through the layers with one activity, with another task, activity, or goal, it hit up some other layer. So it can be challenging, but I don't want people to get discouraged. I just want people to understand the complexity of the human brain and body because there's a lot of talk around this topic of like, it should be easy and you just need motivation and discipline. And when people find that it doesn't work for them, they do fall back into that despair. And again, I want to reinforce that it's not that they're doing something wrong, or it's just that a lot of the information they were given wasn't as complete, and there's probably more layers to uncover for them. Now, if there was a simple cookie cutter solution, it would come down to self-talk. And self-talk are statements that you say or repeat to yourself of the changes that you want to have or have happen. For example, when I wanted to become a better dancer, I had 2 left feet, no rhythm, and I was very uncoordinated. Yeah.
Me too.
And it sucked, and I didn't enjoy it. But to make it easier, I created a set of self-talk statements like, I am an excellent dancer. I learn and pick up moves easily. I remember all the moves and execute them with precision and control. I maintain correct posture, frame, connection, and hand position throughout the dance. I have rhythm and soul. I confidently and smoothly move my body and partner to the rhythm and beat of the music. So I created a set of statements that describe the change that I wanted and how I wanted to show up with my dancing. And I started repeating it regularly. Do you notice how easily I was able to,
Say it because you said it a million times, right?
Yeah. And that helped me become a better dancer. I naturally started to have rhythm. I was able to move my partner better and all of that. And it didn't come from practice and coaching and all that. Granted, I did take that, but it came from the statement itself, and it kind of internalized. And why self-talk works so well is that words are powerful. They seep into our unconscious to create the outcome that we describe. And a majority of our issues, even our resistance, came from words. When we were growing up, teachers saying you can't focus, parents saying that you can't listen, and things like that. And they were just words, but they seep into us and form the beliefs and our image and identity that create our resistance. Now, if words have the power to bring us down, they naturally have the power to bring us up. The only challenge is that brain puts more weight on negative words than positive. So it could take 5 to 10 positive words to counteract a negative, which is why self-talk helps so much, because you're just constantly repeating the statements over and over to internalize it. So this is one quick and easy cookie cutter way that can work on a lot of different areas and a lot of different resistance a person can have that they can use themselves. I know I talked a lot, so I want to give you guys an opportunity.
No, I got a bunch of notes here. So when I get overwhelmed, I shut down. I go to sleep. I take a nap. That's how I shut down.
He avoids it all. Yeah.
But in my mind, I'm telling myself, let me just think about it. Let me just sleep it off, and I'll come up with a plan in my sleep, or I'll be able to tackle it better when I'm well rested. I just shut down.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix that because I am tired. I am exhausted. I've been stressing over it,
Yeah. So tricks of resistance come in many forms. And one of the tricks is also tiredness. So if there's something that we want to do, or there's a task that stands before us, we can often get really exhausted when it's time to do it. And we just want to take a nap. And of course, when we get tired, we don't do the thing. And as long as we don't do it, the tricks win. So when a person does get tired, when they're thinking about a task or activity, then it's a sign that they're in resistance. So it's not a sign that they don't have discipline. It's a sign that the brain is going, hey, wait a minute. There's something about this task that we don't want to complete, and we're going to try to keep you from completing it. And if a person can understand that, it can keep them from getting derailed so easily.
Wow.
I usually do attack them, though, eventually.
Eventually.
Yeah. But I know I get overwhelmed, and I tell her, I'm just going to take a nap. I'm overwhelmed. I feel it.
So I'm going to do a little bit of quack psychology. I'm going to venture to guess that growing up, maybe you had somebody in your life that always scolded you when you made mistakes. Or,
sure.
Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens is when you have that happen, the brain learns that if I do something wrong, something bad is going to happen. So now as an adult, when a task stands before you, there's a fear that you might do something wrong and negative feelings will come up because of it. And so it gets overwhelmed because it's trying to figure out how to do this in the right way so it's done perfectly. And what's crazy is almost nothing can ever be done perfectly or correct, especially the first time. It's just not possible. But if we were conditioned where we were reprimanded or made to feel bad for not doing things right or picking up things quickly or for just being a kid. And what I mean by that is kids weren't meant to have extended focus for a long time and be able to pick up things. They were meant to play. That's how we learn. But if we force them to do something that they're not built or designed to do, and then reprimand them for not being able to do it, they learn that I'm a bad person and I can't do things right. And that shows up when they want to go do tasks as an adult. So that could be playing out.
So crazy.
It's so wild. This stuff is like crazy, like how deep this stuff goes.
It's weird. I'm finding out stuff about me from my childhood in the past. We had a criminal psychologist dive in on me a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that about myself. I'm finding. So, two things. I'm thinking about my magic friends. I'm pretty successful. We do 400 shows a year. I would still like to do more or bigger or whatever, right? I love working. It's my favorite thing. That's why I told you I had cabin fever so bad because I couldn't work during that snowstorm, the ice. Everybody canceled their shows. But I have magic friends that I have known for 30 years that probably do just tricks for their family. They've never taken the step to do a show for their friends. They might have a collection like me of magic, but never took that step to do it because I'm seeing it all. I'm seeing all these, but why? And then I have to market. Then I have to do this. How do I find a customer? But all they want to do is collect toys and they call themselves a magician, but they're not. You're not performing. It's a performance art. You got to do the art, right?
Yeah.
Another thing, Natalie is a health coach. She's my assistant on stage. I put her in boxes, make her disappear, 3 periods in the back of the audience, 400 shows a year. But she also does client check-ins on the road to and from shows because she helps people lose weight or manage their weight or whatever. She just got her master's in nutrition. I hear this all the time from her customers saying, I just can't do it. I don't have willpower. I can't do this. I can't do this. But it's all that stuff in your head just putting up blocks, man.
Yeah. So I'll try to unpack some of what's going on. I'll start with Natalie's customers or clients. I want people to understand that change is hard. It's actually extremely difficult. Unfortunately, this is where I was saying there's kind of a lot of misinformation, especially from personal development, because it could be so motivational and inspiring, and so you can do it. And when we get that feeling, those feelings create this euphoria, like, yes, it's possible, I'm going to be able to do it. But then what happens is once those feelings fade, the resistance is still there. So those feelings really cover things up for a short time. So then we have to deal with the resistance. Now, as I mentioned, anytime resistance shows up, it's because there's a whole host of criteria that I've gone through. And so for somebody who has challenges with weight, there could be a lot of stuff that's coming up. Something as simple could be self-image. Maybe they have a self-image that they're overweight and they're unattractive. That's who they think they are. So going after something that would improve their weight or improve how they look goes against a very core image of theirs, and so resistance comes up. Now, there could be something even deeper going on. This doesn't get talked about much, but this is what something in my work I uncover, in fact, quite a bit. If someone has had trauma or abuse, especially when growing up, their brain makes a connection that either people equals danger or success equals danger. And so if someone is overweight, it's likely because their brain is trying to protect them from not having too much attention or people around. And if they were going to lose weight and improve their health, they'll become more attractive. And that attractiveness means more exposure. And that exposure means more danger. And so to prevent that danger, the brain keeps them in an unattractive state. I know it's wild, but I see this.
Never thought of that.
Yeah.
I never thought of that. There's a fear of success in that as well.
Yeah, in that.
Because
Because
a
go
lot of
ahead.
obese people, like the 600-pound life people, aren't outgoing. They're usually really shy,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? The 600-pound life people aren't performers.
Yeah.
They aren't outgoing.
Yeah. And
Wow.
it's happening unconsciously. That obese person isn't going, hey, maybe if I'm obese, it can keep people from being away from me and it could keep attention away or off of me. It's an unconscious thing that's showing up. And do I have some permission to get real? Because I want to talk about something that doesn't get really talked about.
You talk about anything you want. My only note I have real quick before you change subjects, outside resistance as well. If
Yeah.
I'm telling somebody that I want to do this, I want to start a magic career, honey, and she's like, no, that's for little kids. I can see that. Do you talk about outside resistance as well, not just internal?
And that's a good question. Let me get to that
Okay.
so I
Yeah,
can close the loop on this. So what I'm also finding is that a lot of people who have resistance have had some sort of sexual trauma, meaning a sexual abuse. And what I mean by that is like a molest. And it could happen to a guy or a girl, and it can happen from both a guy or a girl. And what happens with that, and that's one of the more difficult resistance, is because that's what really triggers this feeling of exposure equals danger. And so oftentimes that gets repressed, so they don't even know it happened. And so they if you tell them, hey, maybe you had a repressed abuse, they're like, no, I can't imagine that ever happening because it's so blocked. But the unconscious knows it happened. And it knows that if I get exposure or if I get attention, it feels it might happen again. And so the brain goes on really high guard and alert to keep that person from becoming successful. And a lot of times it shows up in somebody wanting to go on social media more, but the brain won't allow it and they can't figure it out. Somebody wants to get to the next level in their career or become an entrepreneur or get on stages. And all of that, they have resistance because of this trauma that happened, that the brain is so terrified of having exposure to not recreate it again. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
So, what is the number of sexual abuse things? Is it just astronomical that I'm not aware of?
So this is my personal opinion, and I don't want to like
No, I've never done
create
research.
whatever.
No
But
idea.
I think it's a lot more common than people think it is. It's pushed under the rug a lot more, and it's not getting the attention that it deserves. And what's crazy is for a lot of people, it's suppressed, so they don't even know it happened. For a lot of people, they know it happened, and they just don't want to talk about it. They don't want to go there. They don't want to bring it up. For many people, they don't even know it happened, but it's still playing out in their lives, holding them back in ways they can't even imagine.
So I know a girl I went to school with that was a big girl, and it came out with her senior year or whatever that her dad had been molesting her whole life.
Yeah.
So she was eating her feelings, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was a girl that we both knew that worked in a restaurant that Natalie and I worked at, and she would put makeup on like a crazy person, like the Joker. And she was a sweetheart of a girl. You talk to her, she's great. She was an older lady, but she got raped by several people 30, 40 years ago. And they just had her working in the kitchen because she looked like a crazy lady, but she never wanted that to happen again. And you could tell, and she'd tell anybody the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was, I felt so bad for her. Yeah.
And think about this. I bring this up, and you could think of two people already that resembles what I'm talking about. Think of all the people that you probably haven't heard about that are staying silent. So it's happening a lot more. And I do think a lot of the obesity that's happening is, especially if a person can't control it or they're trying to lose weight but they can't, it's because of some unresolved sexual abuse where something horrific like that happened and their mind went on such a guard that they make themselves so unattractive so it can't happen again.
So you're saying that it could even happen like as an infant or a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old that they brain knows it happened, but they don't remember it happening. That can show up their whole life.
Not only can it, but it has, and I have helped people work through and access those memories.
Wow. Ooh.
Yeah.
I know this is getting heavy, and I
No.
remember I told you guys I do about 5 or 6 podcasts a week now. I haven't brought it up, but in my work with clients, it comes up so much. It's something that's definitely worth talking about and bringing
Yeah.
more
Talk.
to it.
You
Absolutely.
go any way you want, man. We're learning from
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
I'm a magician. We have listeners in 63 different countries. We have magician, non-magician listeners. Educate us. Yeah, that's why you're
Yeah.
here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then the other part you talked about, you have people who are magicians, but they're not going outside of their family. Like they don't want to perform in front of their friends, or they want to perform in front of the stage. And so a couple of things that are playing out is one, comfort zone. So it's very comfortable for them to do it in the family. But now when they do it with their friends, it's stepping out of the zone of comfort or familiar that they know. And that can create resistance. And then also it comes down to kind of pain. So the more sensitive a person is to the thoughts, judgments, actions, or reactions of others, the more resistance that will come up. So if a person wants to be a magician and they want to go on stage and they're sensitive to the thoughts and judgments of others, well, going on stage means there's going to be a lot more people who are going to be judging their work. And if the brain feels that they're perceiving them badly, it's going to trigger intense amounts of pain. And since our brain and resistance is designed to protect us from pain, it's predicting what pain can possibly come if I do this. And for a person who's sensitive to the judgments of others, it's kind of going off the Richter scale. It's like there's going to be so many people. If I don't perform and do well, I'm going to feel this intense embarrassment or that I did something wrong. And to avoid that, we're just going to stay with our family or our friends. Now, what's really interesting is when you talked about that, or when you brought that up, you talked about the tricks of resistance as well. You said they just keep collecting all these magic and whatever, but they're not moving forward. Well, that's how the tricks are showing up for them. They're putting all their time on learning and picking up all these other tricks instead of putting in that time to put themselves on bigger stages or put themselves out there. Now,
Yeah, they're collecting the material like writing the book, but not finishing it. Yeah.
yeah. It's like perfecting, but the magician will be perfecting inside of their writing, their craft. Or for a lot of authors, they'll finish the book, but then they'll have a desire to write another book before they publish the first one because they won't feel completely confident, and their brain will go, you know what? Once I write this book, then I'll feel a lot more solid in putting myself out there. So now they take on another project that can take months and years, and that's months and years that makes them avoid publishing the first book, and it's a perfect trick. And it's the same thing with the magician. When it's time to take the next step to go on the next stage or to a bigger audience, their brain will go, you know what? Once I learn this other trick, then it'll be great. So they'll go learn this other trick, but it never ends. You'll just go from wanting to learn another trick and perfecting it more, and you'll always be in front of just your family and not on the bigger stage. And that's how resistance shows up. Now, to circle back to the question you asked about external resistance, I call resistance internal resistance, right? But there are external resistance that can happen too. But what I have found is majority of our resistance is actually internal, and the brain has an amazing way of making it seem like it's external, making
Okay.
it seem like it's because of the world that we live in, it's because of society, it's because of my environment, it's because of my mother and father. And it does a good job of it, and that's how another of the tricks show up, by making it seem like it's external, and because it's external, it's out of my control. Since out of my control, I can't do anything, and so I don't do anything, and the tricks win. But majority of our challenge is to doing what we want. It's usually all internal. And yes, there can be some external stuff where, our parents might not like the career we're choosing, or they might not want us to do magic. But if we really wanted it, we could figure out a way to convince them or to move past it and things of that nature. Our external resistance, especially living in this time, and especially living in our country where we have freedom, the majority of our resistance are actually internal, but it can give the appearance that it's external.
Hey, I'm thinking of all these magicians. I told you we do a lot of shows. I get a phone
Yeah.
call at least once a week from a different magician, different magicians every time. And how do you do it? How do you do it? The economy is just so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you start hearing the excuses, and it's like,
Yeah.
because I mean, I'm in the same economy you're in. It's not the economy, man. Yeah,
It's
so
not the economy. It's something, yeah.
yeah.
And usually what it comes down to, well, like I said, there's dozens of reasons of resistance. But when we start going into the external, it usually means that we need to talk to a person to help us get the gig, or we need to apply and we're too afraid of their rejection. And instead of admitting to ourselves, it's because we're afraid of what a person will think. We're afraid of getting a no. We're afraid of having to ask 5 people and maybe all 5 turn us down. We say, oh, it's the economy's rough, or nobody wants to see magicians. And, all these external excuses come up. And again, that's just a trick because, yeah,
That's sales 101. You ask 20 people and hope that one returns your call. You
yeah,
just
that's
keep calling.
yeah.
That's sales 101.
Yeah, and my work, I used to be an author and then I talk about resistance. Now I do this one-on-one work. I developed a technique that helps people go into their unconscious and access the resistance at the unconscious level, and we work through that unconscious. This is how I'm able to help people uncover some of the repressed trauma that they have. And so this requires me going out and finding clients, which is something I wasn't used to. I was really used to just selling the books and royalties being dropped on in my bank account. And knock on wood, I hope that continues. But as I started moving into this work, it meant receiving no's. And sometimes people can be quite harsh, and sometimes people can be, like quite abrupt, and it could feel like you're doing something wrong, and that you that the work is not valuable. Even though I've had clients where I've had profound shifts, we've accessed some really deep core blocks that they had, and they thank me for the work I do. And I come across someone who's not interested in my work, and my brain negates all the positive I've received and hooks on that negative, and I start questioning, is this even valuable? Does anybody even want this? And so I have actually created statements that I look at every morning that help me work through this. So every morning I look through some of my to-dos, and one of them says, in 10,000 years, will anyone care about your embarrassing moments? So it helps my brain to not be so worried and hung up about embarrassing moments. And the next statement is, not everyone will like or find value in what you do. So you'll have to go through them to find the ones that do value you. And it's just a reminder to my brain, that part of my brain that gets really affected by a no or a negative thought from someone, to not be so hung up about it. And then to help me make sure I'm not getting distracted by my tricks. The next statement is, am I making excuses or taking responsibility? So this is a reminder to make sure that I'm aware when I'm making excuses that are legitimate and ones that are not, that are just a trick. So these are all things that help me, because we all experience resistance.
I know I make excuses on stuff, and I have heard that tells me,
Yeah.
go ahead and do that.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
That's just an excuse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Golly. All right. So, yeah, for all of my magician friends, I mean, what you just said, that's perfect. You sales 101, you got to make those phone calls, and nobody cares. But there's also a thing, professional magicians. I could have an audience of 500, 1,500. If there's somebody in the front row like this, you focus on them. You can't.
Yeah.
But I hear professional comedians say the same thing. That's
It's
just
tough.
nature.
Yeah.
You just plow through it.
And it's like you can have an audience engage with you, but that one person who doesn't, the brain hooks on. And like I said, when I was describing self-talk, the way the brain works, it focuses more on the negative than the positive. So it will put more weight on the negative things someone said to you than the positive things. So we need to add more positive to counteract the negative. You know what's really crazy is, me being an author, I'm in the periphery of the industry, so I kind of meet or hear about a lot of famous authors. And there are some well-known authors who can't read their own reviews. They have somebody else read them. And even though they might get 100 positive review, that pain of that one negative, it's like a dagger to the heart. And that used to be for me too, when early in my journey. When I would see a negative review, it was like somebody was saying that I was just an awful person. And then I would react. And in my head, I would be like, this is fake. This person's trying to just damage my credibility. I couldn't even accept the review for what it was. But once I was able to, it was really helpful because feedback is really important. That's how we grow. And I realized that those negative reviews helped my book and my writing get better. If I could, one, look at them and move past the pain or the shock of it and then say, okay, how could I make it better? And when I started doing that, my books started getting better, my writing started getting better. And when I can be open to the feedback and criticism, that initial sting of it, it still hurts. But when it wears off, and if you can look at it for what it is, just data, it can be helpful.
I'm making excuses for you, man. What kind of people on the internet would never talk to your face this way? Was it beneficial feedback, or was it just spite, evil, hate? What kind of stuff were you getting?
So on my books, it was all kinds. I mean, people saying that I had typos in my writing, that because my book was self-published, I wasn't a legitimate author, saying things. And again, right now I have over 10,000 ratings on Amazon. So that helps. But when I didn't have that, those things would just really hurt.
Yeah.
And again,
you said 2,000 years, and 2 years, nobody cares about that one review in 2 years. Right.
Yeah. So I do want to add, I have this one-on-one work where it's not NLP or hypnosis. I found a way to break the barrier between our conscious and unconscious mind and guide people into their unconscious to work on the resistance on the unconscious level. And right now, I've been really effective at helping people who are afraid of getting on stages or public speaking or becoming visible break through the spider web of resistance that's holding them back. So because your audience are magicians and some of them aren't taking the next step, this technique works wonders, and it could help them not only gain some really deep insight into the cause of their resistance, but we can remove it so it feels natural to get on bigger stages and not get hung up on the reaction of audience. And again, I could do it in a few sessions. So I'm going to take a moment and just plug my thing for that. And if anyone's interested in that, shoot me an email at coach@camknight.com and we can talk about how that works. So back to the programming.
This email one more time is code?
Coach@camknight.com.
Coach@camknight.com. Perfect.
Yeah, so KAMKNIGHT.com.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, that can be very helpful, I'm sure. Absolutely.
I know so many.
Yeah.
So many. Yeah. I mean, just they're lifetime hobbyists.
Yeah. And it's not that they want to be a lifetime hobbyist. I think they do want to go take it to the next level, but that resistance is so strong that they just keep spinning back into the hobby aspect of it.
Wow. Well, you have so many other books. We have 10 minutes left. Speed reading, mind mapping. Natalie had mind mapping in college.
It's like mind mapping, and I was not into it.
Can you tell me what that is?
Maybe they made it overcomplicated in the class or something. I don't know, but it was not my favorite thing to do.
So the funny thing about class is they overcomplicate everything.
There you go. That's how it was.
Because when we learn and study on our own, when it doesn't have to do with school, it just seems so much natural and easy. But when we're doing it for school or class, for some reason, it just seems harder and more difficult than it needs to be. So yeah, I'll go into a really quick dive into mind mapping. First, I will say when people hear the topic of mind mapping, they think it's something where you're mapping the mind, when really it's just a technique for note taking. So traditional note taking is line by line, and you start at the top of the page and then you work down. Mind mapping differs because you don't start at the top of the page, but in the center, and the notes aren't line on line, but they spread out like a spider web. And the reason why this works so well is because the way the brain works, all of our thoughts, ideas, and memories, they're not floating aimlessly in our heads. They're all linked to each other like the roots of redwood trees. And that's how mind maps are. One idea connects to another idea, and then that idea branches out with other ideas, and everything is connected and related, just like the brain. So it's a more natural way to organize information. And what's more with mind mapping is that it's not just about note taking, but it's also for brainstorming, for planning, for decision making, and all that. Because when ideas come out of our heads, they don't come out linearly, they kind of come out all over the place. And mind maps do a really great job of handling that because let's say you're brainstorming for uh, a a trip, right? Where you're gonna go, what you're gonna see. So you might get an idea for day one, and then you'll get an idea for day 5. In traditional note taking, you would have to figure out what line to write it. But with a mind map, you put trip in the center, and you could say day 1, and then all the ideas for day 1. And when then ideas for day 4 come up, you don't have to go linearly. You could just create a branch for day 4 and branch out that way. So it's a really great way to manage information in the way the brain likes to receive and process information. Did that make sense?
Yes, yes, it did. Because in class, I think what made it complicated was you had to map this other program. It wasn't something that you were coming up with on your own. You had to kind of do it for somebody, something that was already kind of figured out, and you had to figure out which way is the quote unquote right way to mind map this thing. And it was not fun. But the way you're talking about it makes it sound more kind of easygoing, flowing, and just easier.
Yeah, that's what it's meant for. It's meant to work with the way how you think of information and not how to force information in a contrived way or in a way that somebody is bottling you into. So yeah.
They were making her do it as a project instead of just mind mapping.
Right.
What like.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know. You have goal setting. Give me some goal setting tips and tricks. Besides breaking through all of the resistance, how do I set goals? Because I got resistance issues.
Yeah, so goal setting is one of the first books I wrote. And it's one of the shorter books. And I spent a lot more time making it short than, most people would spend to write a longer book. And it kind of just focuses on the essentials to set goals. Though the challenge with a goal is not so much knowing what you want and the steps to get there and cutting out all the distraction. Because what I really hone in on in that book is knowing what you have to give up to get that goal. Because remember, we have a wanting mechanism that wants everything. And so we could set a goal, but the brain could also want other things. And we have to know what we have to give up to be able to achieve that goal. In fact, Sidney Poitier said, 1/2 of knowing what you want is knowing what you have to give up. And that's what people aren't willing to do, is give up. Though what's even more important is reprogram your unconscious. Because we can have the goal, but if our mind has habits and programming to do other things, like focus on distractions or work on other stuff, then it's going to be a battle to work against your own brain to do that goal. But if you can get your brain to focus on the goal, then it's not a battle, it just happens naturally. And there are some tips in there that help people align their mind to the goal. And one of them is self-talk. And so if we can create statements around the outcome we want, so the outcome of the goal, plus the things we're going to need to do to get that outcome, and repeat those statements regularly, it helps us align our conscious or unconscious mind to the goal. So, yeah.
I'm so into this, man. I can see goal setting. I mean, I want to be a famous magician. Do you really know what you're giving up? Several funerals in the past 20 years we've missed. Friends, family, loved ones. We couldn't go because I'm already booked. People don't realize what we're giving up. We work on holidays. We do extra shows on holidays. When you're spending time with your family, we're working resorts, entertaining people on vacation. People don't know what they're giving up. Yes.
It's huge. And then they wonder why things don't work for them, because they're not willing to give up the things that are going to help them get the success. Like right now, it's 8 p.m. where I'm at. You know, most people want that 9 to 5 and be done at 5 o'clock. But as an entrepreneur, that's not the luxury I have. When I, do client sessions, sometimes I have to do them at 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. because that's when my client's available. And that means giving up what I would normally do at that time. So there's a lot that we give up that people aren't talking about that we need to do. Again, it goes back to this conditioning, the personal development, some of the miscommunication, because they're just saying you're unlimited, you can do anything you want, and then it pumps you with these positive emotions, and those feelings can feel like, yes, I could do it. But none of this conversation we're having gets talked about. And so when those feelings fade and they're not moving forward, they have no idea why. And one of them,
work for yourself. Be your own boss. You can you can call out sick whenever you want. Not
easy
really.
as they make it. Yeah, right. Not as easy as what people think. Like, you can just do whatever you want, whenever you want.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. No.
What we want when other people don't want us in that time slot, but yeah. So I have a quick question. With my clients that are whatever they're trying to do with their nutrition, say losing weight, because that's the majority of my clients are trying to lose weight. If I suggest to them positive self-talk of just, I am healthy, I am at my goal weight, do you think that would help if I tell them just to keep saying those positive things to keep going during hard times when they're struggling?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it only in the hard times. You got to say it all the time.
All the time. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I have a very hectic mind. So when you see me standing here, I'm hoping I come off like someone who's intelligent and can communicate, is very linear, but it wasn't always this way. I was literally all over the place. I had mental, emotional challenges. I had a lot of struggles. And really, self-talk is what got me to this point. But I learned I have to be speaking that self-talk really all the time. So I have statements I say in the morning. I have a set of statements I say when I'm driving. I have a set of statements that I say in the evening. And I even have some statements that I'm just kind of saying when I'm walking around, waiting in line, going about the day, not talking to someone. But they're all different for different areas I want to improve. One, I talked about dancing. I like social dancing and I want to get good at it. The other thing was I was never a good communicator. I actually stuttered, stammered, and I had a hard time getting the thoughts out of my head into words out of my mouth, because what would come out was very different than what I started with, or it started the right way but ended somewhere different. I'm sure you've had those conversations with people. And so I created self-talk around that. So I'm an excellent communicator. I easily communicate my thoughts, ideas, feelings, experiences, and more. I can write about and verbalize anything. I'm never at a loss for words because the right words come to me quickly and easily. And notice how fluidly I say that, because I say it so much. So I want people to understand it's not in just the statements and getting the statements right, but it's in repeating it regularly. And for example, one of the things I learned is how helpful a morning routine is for me. But I would have challenges getting up in the morning or on time. And so I created a statement. I quickly jump into and complete all the items in my morning routine every morning. As soon as I wake up, I start repeating that until I get out of bed and start going into the routine. And I keep saying it until I finish the routine. So self-talk can be a really great guide if you use it the right way. I have had people use self-talk, but they think it's saying it a few times here and there, or it's the thinking of it, but it's actually the speaking of it. I don't use the word affirmation or positive thinking. I'm very deliberate in saying the word self-talk because it's the talking of it. Now, to answer your question, if a person did that regularly, it can have a massive shift in their life, massive. If they just kept repeating it, of both the outcome that they want and the things they're going to need to do to get that outcome. So let's take an example of someone losing weight. The outcome is becoming healthy and fit or having a lean body, right? So they can add statements like, I am healthy and fit. I am lean and muscular or lean and attractive. That's the outcome. What are we going to need to do to get to that outcome? I pick the right foods. I exercise 3 times a week and things like that. And you would create about 8 statements that really hone in that goal and make it very clear. So it shouldn't be very lengthy, and repeat it over and over and over and over and over. And the person will naturally find themselves doing the things that they need to get the results and then moving towards the result.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, even not eating garbage, you know?
Yeah.
Think about Doritos or something is garbage food, right?
Yeah.
So I love myself. Why would I feed myself garbage?
Right. Yeah.
And you just
Yeah.
say that, then you maybe don't go to the pantry as often.
Right.
Yeah. So you wouldn't use I don't eat garbage food. You would eat I eat healthy and clean food.
Yeah.
I eat food that resonates with my body.
I was using a negative statement in my affirmation, which you don't want to do. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is not what you want to do, yeah. Yeah.
So
The only time you can add a negative is when you say don't. So
Okay.
sometimes when you want to stop a behavior, saying it in the positive doesn't really help. But if you can say, I don't do something, for example, I haven't drank in over 10 years. And when I was quitting drinking, I was around people who were always drinking and I was at bars. The bartender would ask me. And then once I learned I don't drink, it just started becoming the self-image thing. And I would go out of my way to say those things to people. Even if people didn't ask me for a drink, I'd just be like, I don't drink. I don't do that. And it's been over 10 years since I stopped drinking. You know what's crazy is I haven't watched a movie in the theater in 10 years as well. I don't watch movies.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So you just say that. And there's going to be moments where we're going to lapse, where we're not going to be in line with our self-talk. And it's easy to kind of lose focus. But no, those lapses happen. And it doesn't mean that the self-talk isn't working. It just means you just hop back on and continue. Because there are moments with the self-talk that it's not always perfect. Like with my dancing, I don't always hit the moves right. I'm not always perfect. But the more I repeat the statements, the more often I am perfect versus not being perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. I like this. Thank you.
So with your one-on-one coaching, what do you bill yourself as? What do you say to a client? You've already given the pitch once, but give it again to someone out there. What are you providing them? Because I consider you like a life coach at this point. I mean, you're helping people get rid of resistance. You're helping them overcome goals. You're helping them do or set goals. You're doing so much.
Yeah. So I say coach, so people, because it's a term people understand, but I don't really do coaching or advice giving, because coaching is giving advice, and advice is helpful, but I find that unless you work on the unconscious, the advice can kind of go in one ear out the other, or they might be applying it for a little bit, but they fall off. So I would like to just say, like, I help people guide them into their unconscious mind to release their deepest, most blocked emotional patterns to live an even better life. And that can mean if somebody was wanting to become more visible, wanting to gain more exposure, getting on stages, we can remove the blocks that is keeping them from doing that. If somebody has had past events in their life that is affecting them now, we can remove the emotional weight of that so they can move forward without the weight of their past holding them back. So, yeah. But this is
Wow.
a good question because when I say what I do, because it makes sense to me, I think is very clear to everybody. So this will be very helpful for me to really refine what my offer is with my one-on-one.
Yeah, because I mean, it's somebody I need in my life. I need a coach in my life telling me, hey, set goals, do this.
Yeah.
Fight your resistance.
Yeah.
Why are you taking a nap, Wes? What's
Yeah.
going on, right? What's really happening right
What
now?
are you
Yeah.
avoiding?
But what I do is I go beyond that and I remove the stuff that's holding you back from doing those things. So you could just do it without me needing to tell you.
Yeah.
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 Wow. Dude, this was awesome. Time flew by.
Yeah, you guys liked it? I'm glad.
Yes, very much so. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Thank you for reaching out. Thank you for being awesome.
Yeah.
What's the
Yeah.
website people can find you?
Yeah, so I've got 3 free gifts for all your listeners.
Oh, wow.
The first is called Prompt Engineering for Your Mind. The human brain was the original ChatGPT, and we can prompt it to give us answers and solutions. But unlike ChatGPT, we can actually take action on those answers and solutions, and they can learn how to do that in the first guide. The second guide is called Build Skills and Habits in Your Sleep. And it goes back to what I said earlier, when we can program our unconscious to move us in the direction that we want, it becomes easier to do and stick with our goals. And a person can do that with self-talk, and I teach them how to do in the second guide. And the third guide goes deeper into this topic of internal resistance. It talks about how our other ways our wants create challenges to achieving our want. Because, I talked about the overactive want and how that can keep us from moving forward in a direction. But there's other challenges our wanting mechanism creates. There's other causes of resistance, and there's other tricks, and they can learn about all of that in the third guide, and they can get it all for free on my website at camknight.com. And if anybody wants to do one-on-one work with me, they can go to, or they can email me at coach@camknight.com, and I can give them more information how it works. Again, it's not so much coaching and advice giving, but going into their unconscious and doing the work there. So it's much more direct and much quicker than, spending weeks to even months and years doing things the traditional way.
I'm gonna go check out the website. I'm gonna check out those books.
Yeah.
I love it. I love everything about it, man.
Yeah.
This is awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
I think that's everything. Go check out his. How about your Amazon store with all your list of books? Is just on your website?
Yeah, if they want to check out my books, they can go to my website as well. They'll see the dozen books I've written.
That's awesome. Dude, you were amazing. Thank you for everything tonight.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Wow, no problem. I'm glad you guys enjoyed this topic. So it makes me feel like I am on the right path. So this is great.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the only thing we have left to say is see you next week.
Check us out online at wesiseli.com and patreon.com/Wes_Isley for behind-the-scenes videos, blooper videos, never-before-seen footage, discounts on merchandise, magic trick tutorials, and more. That's Wes Iseli, spelled WESISELI.